Hello and welcome to ReggiesTake.com, podcast number 4. Joining me once again is Steve.
Hey, what's up, folks? Steven
Hey.
Specialist in the house.
Thanks for coming back. You took a break from the last show.
Well, you know, I did go check out my portfolio, see if there was any money to be made in this endeavor. Found out that I was broke either way, so I figured, what the hell, I'll just come back.
Hey, and we're glad to have you back here at ReggiesTake.com.
Okay.
Today,
What about Reggie's Give?
No, we won't go there.
Oh, no giving, all taking. I see how it is.
No, all the giving's done. Well, never mind.
Did you give it the office? You gave it the office. It's okay, just say you gave it the office, man.
Senator, I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights.
Plead the fifth?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Honey, I still love you.
He's such a giving man.
Anyway. Wow. Anyway, no real particular subject. Thought today we'd kind of cover basically Hollywood movies, kind of some of the rumors, non-rumors.
Let's hear it for Hollywood. Yeah. Sorry, I figured you needed some sort of theme music in for that.
No, theme music.
I didn't say it'd be good. I just said you needed.
Well, the theme music right now is everyone hearing the click of their computer speakers now going off.
Oh no, they cranking it, yo.
What would you say is probably the biggest Hollywood news over the last, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks?
Batfleck.
And for all of you who may have been in the dark, hiding under a rock
with a knight,
or vacationing with Dennis Rodman in North Korea, Ben Affleck will be Batman.
Batfleck.
What is your honest first initial opinion of Ben Affleck as Batman?
Ben Affleck will make a great Bruce Wayne. You asked for my initial opinion. There it is. Ben Affleck will make a great Bruce Wayne. Luckily, this movie is a Superman Man of Steel sequel, not a Batman sequel. So you can minimalize the Batman and do fairly well, because people are going to go see this movie for the novelty idea of, oh, it is Batman and Superman. But I mean, if the way it should be written, it should be primarily for Superman lovers to be the people to geek out over. They've had plenty of Batman movies over the last 10 years to geek out over. So it's,
well, we know when you have 3 really really good to great movies from Christopher Nolan,
yep.
And I won't say which ones are good or great or whatever.
They're all good.
They were good across the board. Yes, one may be more excellent than the other depending on your opinion.
Yeah,
but when you have a series that really stepped up the superhero world.
Mm-hmm. Game.
You made everyone else around you in Hollywood step up their game.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a series like that from Batman, I don't know, will audience be expecting too much?
Oh, I'm sure that there's going to be a contingent out there that's, they're going to want some sort of grade A Academy Award experience in acting. But you know what? You're going to a superhero movie. The fact that Heath Ledger won an Oscar posthumously for playing the Joker, that's not something to be expected from these kinds of movies. You're here for 2 things: watch stuff blow up and eat a ton of popcorn and just enjoy disconnecting from reality for 2.5 hours. That's what you're going there for. You go in there expecting some sort of Academy Award winning performance, you're going to be sorely disappointed across the board. Just the way it is. But to get back to your initial question of my thoughts on Ben Affleck as Batman. Ben Affleck will make a great Bruce Wayne. I'm not sold on him in a cowl and cape and being all Batmanish.
Well, here's the good thing with that, though. I mean, depending on how much fight sequence you have, how far away they are, how close up they are, mm-hmm. Most of the time, he's going to be made to look better in the bat suit from some stuntman doing all his work for him.
They're smart, yeah.
Than him actually having to perform it himself.
Right. No, I totally get that. I do totally get that. But as the movie should be, and I've made mention of this plenty of times, this movie works best when you have a lot of Superman, because it's a Superman sequel. You have a lot of Bruce Wayne, a little Clark Kent, and a little bit of Batman. That movie works best in that formula alone. Because if you start putting Ben Affleck in that suit and having a lot of scenes with him as Batman, I think you're going to turn a lot of people off. Not necessarily because he's going to be bad at it or, have a real horrible interpretation of the character. But I think people are still, and I don't know why, they're still sour to him playing Daredevil.
Which could be understandable.
It's understandable. But, we're talking about a much more mature, less
supposedly
goofballish. If you've seen what he's done in the last 5 years, it's not like we're expecting a Geely performance by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and he I think they're part of the criticism of him playing Batman from the critics and also the fans is the fact A, he does have Daredevil on his resume. Yeah. B, he did Geely, and C, he just is now in the last 2 to 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, just started to get his quote movie career back on a track of respectability.
Yeah.
At least from the fans' point of view.
Yeah.
A, with his directing, B, with his acting.
Mm-hmm.
He's done both.
Yeah.
In some movies, he's done it at the same time.
Yeah.
And he's been getting really good reviews for some of his movies, like Argo.
Yeah.
I have not seen that, but I hear it's very good.
I've heard real good things about it.
But I think that's where the criticism comes in, and so making this movie where they're supposed to be having Batman as a more grizzled, hardened, kind of been beaten down from the superhero life. I think that's where you get a lot of people going, "You picked who?"
Well,
where the initial rumors was they were wanting
Christian Bale.
Also knowing that Christian Bale most likely would not come back, they were also wanting to Josh Brolin, because he had the look of what they were looking for as far as the grittiness. The look of hardening of being Batman for 15, 20 years had been playing on his face, that type of...
I'll say this, if you catch flack, I apologize. Ben Affleck over Josh Brolin.
See, because when I heard Josh Brolin, I didn't initially have any issues when I heard that rumor.
And it's not like... People would have cringed more about Josh Brolin than Ben Affleck, because Jonah Hex is fresher in people's minds than Daredevil. Jonah Hex was a bad movie.
Yes, but, I think...
Also a DC Comics character.
I don't know. I mean...
I'm just saying. I think I think the fanboy continuum out there would have been like, no, we can't have that. That won't work at all.
And from what you said, your theory of how the movie should go, being that it is a Superman sequel.
Yep.
My theory, I think, is somewhat along yours as far as how the movie should go. You should see Bruce Wayne, maybe since he had some buildings or offices in Metropolis, get destroyed. He's upset with him already in the first place, because now he's costing him money to fix his empire that he had going as Wayne Enterprises. So he's upset with Superman himself. So you see more Bruce Wayne and kind of ticked off with Superman in a certain sense, and it's not till the end you really see Batman, and it's Batman who, I'll take that back. Maybe see Batman at least once somewhere middle of the movie engaging with Superman,
right?
In a little bit of a not happy way, in a certain sense, kind of a set the up. But at the end of the movie, Batman does what ends up being the right thing and comes to however it is they decide to write this, and comes back and basically bails his ass out. Of his problem. That's how I think they should do it. Now,
bails which one out of whose problem?
Batman bails Superman out of his.
I don't like that.
You don't like that?
No, because...
Or, at least assist in making sure Superman gets whatever is going on done.
Maybe, I mean, to the point of where I don't like the idea of a superhero needing a bailout from another superhero.
Especially Superman, right?
Especially when it's your sequel.
True.
I mean, if it's your sequel, the last thing you need is having your character undermined by having somebody else come help you out.
Of course, they also may be looking
It would be more along the lines of, if you're going to do that, the correct way to do it is to have Superman bail Batman out. As much as that would pain Bruce Wayne in all forms, shapes, and manners of his character. You asked my opinion.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, I've given you yours, you've given me mine, and I'm sure there's about 10 million out there. I mean, do you think of course, it's going to determine a lot how this movie does script wise?
Yeah.
Obviously, the same director, Zack Snyder, is coming back to do the sequel. So obviously the look and the feel or the tone of the movie won't change in that sense. But
I have to wonder, what the setup is. And I can see, in my mind, I can see the opening being a setup where you have Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor at some sort of business meeting discussing the destruction and how to rebuild, the proper way to rebuild Metropolis. Lex with his with his business savvy yet not so innocent ways of going about probably building it, whereas you'd set up Bruce to be more of the straight-laced, hey, let's get the proper permits kind of thing, and but both of them agreeing that they can't have this guy running around destroying the city.
Right.
That's how I kind of see the movie opening up, but that's just me.
And I discussed something similar to this in my last podcast with the guys from True Believers. It was kind of if I remember correctly, if they're going to deal with Lex Luthor in this particular setting of Superman,
right?
I think you really shouldn't see. I really don't want to see Lex Luthor necessarily as the bad guy in this movie. Yeah, I'd rather see Lex Luthor as a bad guy in a third Man of Steel movie where it's just a one-on-one thing.
Well,
rather than having Batman involved with it.
As much as I think Lex Luthor is a defining character in all of comics in terms of how maybe a villain should be portrayed, I think sometimes he gets misconstrued mainly because of his origins. His origins were the business conglomerate that everybody sees today. Most people that grew up way back in the day have the have the original concept of him being more of the mad scientist,
Right.
Devising this and that in order to try and stop Superman and do whatever, the original movies where he was just crazy about land, but then you get to the newer comics and like Smallville, and he's a businessman. He's corporate America.
The Donald Trump in a certain sense,
exactly.
but with a more evil tone in the background.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You have this, like guys who ran Enron into the ground, those kinds of people. That's the kind of persona that you. But for the storyline, and I mean, especially if you want to play it correctly, I think is that you don't necessarily make Lex Luthor the primary villain in this movie. You need,
I think
you need to make him the puppet master.
That's where I was going to go with.
You have to make him the puppet master,
pulling the strings
behind the scenes, because that's what his character does best.
And then have him kind of be more or less the main bad guy dealing with, so to speak, in the third movie.
Yeah. But like for this movie here, somebody like, and I hate to say it because they haven't brought in the concept of kryptonite in this new
and I
version.
don't know if they will.
And see, that's just it. I would love to see somebody think outside the box, and instead of the typical ones. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed that they went with Zod for Man of Steel. And I know everybody and their mother is hard up for Brainiac when it comes to Superman, because people are burned out on Lex.
Right.
I get that, but it would not be so far out of the realm to think that you have Lex playing this puppet master role, and you have like Metallo or the Toy Man, characters that don't necessarily catch a lot of
screen time
or intrigue.
I think if you say Brainiac, I think of Patrick Stewart playing that role. I'd love to see him as a villain. I mean, he's always played these, quote.
I'd buy that. That'd be awesome, actually.
In a certain sense.
Like they had James Marsters, the guy who used to play Spike on Buffy, play Brainiac on Smallville. And I thought that was a pretty good, characterization. But yeah, I think Patrick Stewart would be excellent. The only problem is that do you have him play kind of like the robotic version of himself, this robotic version, or this kind of humanoid version of himself? Could you convince Patrick Stewart to
play that role?
Play a role like that, especially when essentially Brainiac's a bald guy. I don't know. You have to kind of wonder, does that kind of interfere with casting? And like I said, though, if you're going to do something like that, I think you're better off having Lex as the puppet master, and you introduce some of the other rogues that's not necessarily as well known. But just my thoughts.
Hey, and that's what you're here for. Anyway, and obviously the closer we get to July 2015 release date, the more talk, the more rumors, the more buzz, and especially once we see even the first teaser trailer of that movie.
Oh, I know
it is going to create so much.
It'll break the internet.
Yes, it will.
It'll break internet. It'll break Twitter. It'll break Facebook. And it's like, I wanted to get on and do social media, but Ben Affleck is Batman. He broke Twitter.
Al Gore takes credit for inventing the internet. Ben Affleck killed it.
Yes, I blame them both.
Yes.
Al Gore, how dare you not make the internet more powerful to handle Ben Affleck as Batman?
Okay. Let's kind of move on.
Switch gears.
So let's move on from Batman, because we could probably.
We've done Batman for a while now.
Yeah. Some other really recent news is Kelsey Grammer, Dr. Frasier Crane himself.
Frasier Crane.
Which, by the way, I thought he was actually funnier in his own show Frasier than he was in Cheers. But then again, he wasn't built for the main role in Cheers, so he
was a side character.
Character, and that's fine.
I'm not gonna lie when I say this, I never really watched either show. It was it was a little highbrow above me for my age.
Of course, you are older than me, so but we won't go there. Anyway, the news with Kelsey Grammer, the news with Kelsey Grammer, and it's not like they already don't have enough quote aging stars in this coming movie, but he is now joining the cast of Expendables 3.
Here you go,
and he will be playing a character named Bonaparte, an ex-mercenary who aids the heroes on their mission. The part was initially offered to Nicolas Cage. And this movie, obviously, we already know, has Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Terry Crews, Antonio Banderas, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, and Wesley Snipes.
Yes.
I mean,
I don't know. You would think that a movie like this has to be at least 3 hours long just to get everybody's screen time.
Well, that and this movie's so heavy male testosterone loaded. I mean, is their projector strong enough to?
I don't know, but
it?
I would imagine that any NFL player that goes to see it probably has to go get tested for performance-enhancing drugs after coming out of the theater, though.
But I mean, do you buy him in these type of roles?
I don't know. Okay. I seen a movie with him not too long ago. It was kind of a mockumentary kind of thing, done like a Christmas Carol, but I think it was called An American Carol. And they had him playing.
Well, I know he's doing a show like on Showtime or HBO or Stars where he's kind of an evil, nasty politician.
Yeah. Well, what I seen this movie, they had him as. I think it was either Eisenhower or General MacArthur. I mean, I kind of bought it. For what it was, I kind of bought it. Yeah, it was kind of a mockable documentary kind of thing, but if I think about that, yeah, I can kind of see him doing a heavier role towards the, something exploring his manly side.
Well, and also my guess is this role is going to be like what you saw with
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris in the last one, where you saw him for about maybe 10 minutes of screen time in 2 different places, and that's really going to be about it.
Yeah.
So
and that's what you really get out of these movies. It's
the quick little.
You know what these are? This is the modern day Cannonball Run.
Well, and that
except instead of cars, we got bullets flying everywhere.
Yes, and I did read somewhere where when Stallone did the first Expendables, his main reason for doing Expendables was more or less to show that Hollywood could still do action movies without all the CGI stuff.
Yeah.
And of course he used a little bit stronger language, but
yeah,
he wanted to prove you could still do it old school and still have it successful. And obviously he's on his 3rd movie of doing such.
But you also got to think about there's the kind of the wow factor.
Right.
Like, oh wow. Bruce Willis, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, all in the same movie. That never happened before.
Right. And supposedly from what I understand, Mel Gibson and Antonio Banderas is playing the baddies in this one, so that should be interesting to see as well.
I hope for some sort of a wink and a nod to the movie Assassins, but not Puss in Boots
or Zorro.
Maybe Desperado. If they have Antonio Banderas come out with a guitar case that's got a machine gun or a rocket launcher, I'm going to stand up and applaud.
Well, how about Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone? They had that movie back in the early 90s. Man.
You want to know? Here's a fun fact. I seen that movie 3 times in the theater. I seen it the first time of my own accord. The other 2 times, like, well, I don't want to go to the movies by myself, so I got drugged back to the movie. I seen it like 3 times.
Were you happy just to see it the once?
I was good. I was good the first 2 times. The third time, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it.
You take a nap?
No, I mean I had free popcorn and a drink,
okay.
So I was good. But
well, of course, this won't be his first movie playing kind of he's not necessarily playing a bad guy in Expendables, but
which one, Wesley?
No, Kelsey Grammer.
Kelsey Grammer, okay.
But he is playing the human bad guy in Transformers: Age of Extinction, which had been known for the last year or 2 as Transformers 4.
Yeah.
Which they finally gave a name to here several weeks ago.
Yeah, because they finally came up with the concept. I know, let's introduce the Dinobots. Me, Grimlock, think that's great.
Now, is Michael Bay going to play, speaking of the Dinobots, because I was going to ask you this, do they play the Dinobots kind of a legitimate...
Define legitimate.
Well, kind of like the Autobots. Not necessarily not play them off as some stupid heavies in the robot world, but make them kind of more intelligent, like the Autobots, but... with obviously better strength like they were in the cartoons and comics.
In the cartoons, the original G1 series, because that's kind of the only one I really like, because it just reminds me of my childhood. The original Dinobots from the G1 series was, they were stupid. I mean, they were...
Well, that's why I asked.
I mean, they were just completely stupid. The only question I have to wonder about that is that do they... I have to wonder if they do this or not because of the backlash they caught from Revenge of the Fallen. 2 cars that weren't exactly... They were kind
of smartest thing in the world.
Well, they were kind of stereotyped as
I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, so I have to wonder, how they play that without offending anybody, because that really didn't work out so well in the second one. I mean, you'll end up with Grimlock and Slag and Sludge and Swoop and
right. Supposedly Grimlock, Slag, Sludge, Snarl, and Swoop.
Yeah.
Or I would assume would all be in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
question is do they? I would assume in this version though that they'll look more like I'm using air quotes here, real dinosaurs, in terms of they won't look metallic like they did in the cartoon where they just look like metal dinosaurs.
Don't make them look like real dinosaurs.
I think they'll probably make them look more like.
But when they transform, they'll be metallic looking with their.
I don't know. I mean, I assume when they're in their robot mode, they'll look metallic and whatnot. But when they're in their dino mode, if you will. I assume that they'll probably look more lifelike, like to the point of having something that looks the color scheme.
Or they've got some sort of imaging to make them look real.
Some sort of color scheme to make them look good. Like something that you would expect to see, which you would expect to think a dinosaur would look like. Kind of an earth tone kind of thing, not necessarily a gray metal dinosaur roaming around.
Good move or bad move on Michael Bay's part to bring in Dinobots?
I think it's a natural progression. I don't have a problem with that actually. I think it's a natural progression into the storyline. If you want to keep making these movies, it's a natural progression.
And according to
there's some other characters I'd love to see him bring in as well, but
I think it's Paramount who puts these out. I think they are looking for another trilogy out of this, so I would assume this is what they're setting up. And of course, we've got Mark Wahlberg playing the human good guy, so
and Bumblebee's getting a makeover again.
Right.
Well, all the main ones are getting makeovers.
Yeah, and that's caused a little bit of, depending on where you read, some backlash with.
I like what they're doing with Bumblebee. I like going back to an old school style body on him. I'm not feeling the same way what they did with Optimus Prime.
There's a part of me can understand why they would update him. It's because the storyline's taking place 5 years after the end of the third one. So you'd assume after a while you'd want to change your looks a little bit to kind of just keep up from whatever,
Especially if you had the ability
from being recognized as easily. Yeah. But in the same sense, people want their tradition. I mean, that's like all of a sudden, you just don't want to see that kind of change. That's like seeing Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull wearing a different type of hat. You just don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's like him wearing a bowler hat as opposed to a fedora. You're like, no, that don't work.
Right. So,
but I mean, there's plenty of other characters I'd love to see them explore, bring in with the Transformers. But
and this is just a stupid question on my part. Obviously, at the end of the third one, Optimus killed Megatron again. Do they dare bring him back, or is there enough other bad guys in the Decepticon world to bring in as
well? See, that's where it becomes an interesting concept, because as far as the heavies go, it's been Megatron. It's always been Megatron. After the '86 cartoon movie, he was transformed into he was reborn as a character named Galvatron. Basically the same kind of concept, just the ultra heavy. But I don't believe you can do that unless you bring in a character named Unicron, which is a planet.
And I don't think they're going to go there.
I don't think they're going to go there now. I say that, watch, there's a monster planet that's coming for Earth. And
there was a picture on Michael Bay's website that they put out a month and a half ago of a picture of him and some of the human cast members with some of his production staff. And it looked like they were standing on some sort of Autobots, Decepticon type of pyramid type of thing.
Okay.
It just looked like obviously they were going somewhere with this. Not sure with the the markings from what you used to seeing from the first three.
It wouldn't surprise me if a Starscream kind of thing where he decided Starscream was kind of the main guy in charge,
and just they just leave Megatron dead.
Leave Megatron dead in this one, or they come up with some other completely different character. It's quite possible. I mean,
now I have seen a picture of a new character. I don't remember what they said the name of that character was supposed to be, but it was a flat nose black semi cab.
See, and that's when people tell me about that. That comes back to me that character is Motormaster, and that would actually get me fairly excited, because that means that they're bringing the Stunticons in, which is perfect, by the way, for a Michael Bay movie, because the Stunticons are nothing but crazy driving fools. They're indestructible. They can, in their car mode, they can bounce off anything, and they won't get a scratch on.
So if they bring those in, you're hoping for maybe one hell of a car chase.
Yeah.
Somewhere?
Oh yeah. I would fully expect a monster car chase.
Well, of course, look what he did with Bad Boys 2. I mean, there was one hell of a car chase in that one.
I mean, I can easily see the Stunticons chasing down Bumblebee. This, with the exception of Motormaster, all those vehicles are ultra high performance cars, like IndyCar. One the original cartoon one was a Porsche 928, and it had another one that was I can't think of the other two cars, but Motormaster was the black semi that went with them. Anyway, they combined together to make a super combiner robot called Minosaur.
Already.
And and Motormaster was the kind of the central piece of that, and each one kind of formed the cars formed arms and legs for it, kind of thing.
Well, the good news is, unlike Man of Steel, we don't have to wait as long to see this one, because this one comes out June 27th of next year. 2014. So
cool. My oldest will like that, because that's the day before his birthday.
You'd assume sometime in December you might get a teaser trailer. If not December, maybe January for sure.
Oh, I can tell you when you'll see the first teaser trailer for that. Super Bowl. That is a Super Bowl kind of thing.
Just give you 30 seconds of just to whet your appetite.
If that,
or maybe a 15-second one.
Yeah, they'll be like, wait, what was that? Michael Bay would be the kind of person he'd spend $3 million on a 30-second commercial and tell you nothing about it. They're like, what did we just see here?
And
Man?
all of a sudden,
all of a sudden, you see like one little Transformer logo up at the top. You're like, oh.
Well, that, and all of a sudden,
then the whole screen explodes because it's Michael Bay.
Someone who, if they can do it, sit there and go, oh look, everyone who has a DVR just backed them all up.
Yeah. What game? It's okay that it's the first game that's ever gone into overtime, and we're tied at 28 apiece. And
yeah. Well, moving on from Transformers, because I'm sure
the Browns and the Lions both playing in their very first Super Bowl, and nobody wants to see that.
Skip around here, and I'm going to go probably someplace you're probably not as familiar with. So I'm going to go with Star Wars Episode 7.
Okay.
Obviously, J.J. Abrams is directing,
right?
Which has gotten a lot of news over the last year because he's also done the first 2 reboot Star Trek movies. Which Star Trek is also what I'll be getting to next, by the way.
Okay.
But there's some rumors around here. Abrams has announced, and Disney saying that they're going to go back to making the movies feel more real, air quotes as you used earlier. So they're going to actually shoot it on 35 millimeter film.
That's cool though.
And their special effects is going to be split up between the old-fashioned way of what Lucas did, obviously
hard effects and miniatures,
that kind of stuff, with the use of CG.
Yeah, and see, I like that. I really like that because
and from what I read, it's also gotten a lot of good kind of cool from the fans.
I like it because I hate movies that rely
totally on CG.
It's totally on CG because I don't buy into it.
And that's what Lucas did for episodes 2 and 3. He shot them all digitally. All the special effects were digital.
Yeah, I mean it was believable, but in the end you're like, yeah.
It was believable, but I think also in a certain sense that they lost something.
Yeah, they
of course the biggest thing they lost in 2 and 3, which was a good thing, was Jar Jar. Less of
That's
him.
not true. Jar Jar was in 3.
Yeah, he was in 3, but not till almost the end.
What they should have done was figured out a way to bring Padme back and put Jar Jar in the damn coffin. Anyway, just saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and you agree with me.
Yes, but that's for another podcast. we will have our Jar Jar podcast later on.
I used to think that's a dumb idea.
Now I don't know. Do you know who the name of this actress is? Saoirse Ronan.
No.
I looked her up on International Movie Database. She's got like 14 or 15 movies or TV shows credited to her name.
Okay.
But nothing that rang a bell to me. So I don't know who she is, but supposedly from my sources that I have that I look up, that I scowl through the internet for. They say supposedly she's gone in to read for a lead role and possibly a leading role or possibly the lead role.
Okay.
And being that she's a female kind of tells me, well, they're obviously looking as the main lead character as a female, which would tell me and I already kind of suspected this anyway, that they're going to Han and Leia's kids as older teenagers and Luke's kid. So, because there's been rumors around about they're looking for basically 2 older male teenagers and a female.
Okay.
For roles, which tells me they're kind of they're jumping at least a good 20 years past Return of the Jedi. Easily.
Okay.
Considering, because if you're going to bring back Luke, Han, and Leia, you've got to account for their age.
Yeah, because if you're going to bring back the originals anyway.
Right. If you're going to bring back those 3, and according to what I've read, those 3 are in a more of a supporting role, like Alex Guinness was in the first one.
Right.
I mean, he's there for a reason, but he's not holding the movie.
Yeah, he's
there.
He's getting you from point A to
point B. Right. The other big rumor that's been going around for the last 3 weeks is Benedict Cumberbatch. You know who he is?
No.
Have you seen Into Darkness?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm a slacker.
Have you seen Sherlock on BBC America?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anyway, Benedict Cumberbatch is the guy who played Khan in the latest Star Trek movie.
Okay.
And for those of you who have not seen Into Darkness, I'm sorry for ruining who he plays.
God!
Anyway.
Oh, no. Never mind. I won't do it. I was going to say something else. But.
Anyway, so the rumor has that at one time about 2.5 weeks ago that he had dropped out of this one director's very high-profile movie. And he gave no reason for dropping out. Because the rumor was he was going to be joining J.J. Abrams in Episode 7. Because those 2 movies both start filming in January or February of next year at the same time. That was the rumor.
Okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch's people have come out and said since then, saying, no, that's a lie. He's not joining Episode 7. But the same website who put that out 2.5 weeks ago has also said that they stand by their report, and they say that Cumberbatch people is lying and covering because, or he will be supposedly playing in episode 7 a small role, but his role will get bigger in episodes 8 and 9.
Cool.
Now, if of course you haven't seen Into Darkness, but he plays a really great bad guy in that movie.
Yeah, I will. Just haven't got a chance to check it out yet.
So I know I probably threw a subject in you're not as familiar with.
Oh no, it's fine.
I just think it's an interesting choice. I mean, if he because my guess is if he actually does play in all 3 movies,
yeah,
my guess is he's going to be playing some sort of villain because he works so well as a villain in Star Trek Into Darkness. I can't see him playing anything else. I just, especially if his role gets bigger as the trilogy moves on. Would you agree and disagree?
Well.
And I know you're not you don't keep up like Star Wars like I do.
No, I don't. This may be off the subject, maybe just a little bit, but I've always felt that those 2 franchises should be kept separate. And there's just way too much crossover with people from one movie working in the others. I don't know. I guess at that point, at that specific point, I guess that's where I would be more of a purist. Like, you know what? You have these folks that are doing Star Wars. You have these folks that are doing Star Trek.
Now, I can see why Disney went after Abrams. I mean, he is the hottest thing in sci-fi right now.
Absolutely.
And depending on your opinions about the Star Trek movies, either you love him or you hate him. There is no in between.
Yeah. Quite frankly, I'm surprised Disney didn't, have you go to Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon has done sci-fi for all his adult life. I mean, yeah, he's kind of tangled up with the Marvel stuff and the Avengers thing, but you would think. I mean, he did do the Firefly and the Serenity movie, Firefly movie, you know. So it's not like it's not completely out of his wheelbox to go out there and
do something
of this nature, and especially with the amount of success Avengers had, and the amount of money that Disney could sit there and throw into a movie to make sure that it looks good. Now, I'm just saying that.
Now, from my understanding, Abrams doesn't have as much control in this as far as certain things as he did with the Star Trek movies.
Okay.
He's more or less been brought in as a director to put his vision of what they want, to put his vision of what they have written on paper to make it work on film. And that's basically what he's been, where on Star Trek, it was his writing staff. He had input as well into it. So he was kind of involved in everything with it. Whereas this, he's not necessarily involved with the story concept and writing.
He's just take the story, take what we got, make it look good.
Right. Yeah. So I think in that point, I think I'm okay with it. Well, that's me. But then again, I've read others who,
and I'm not violently one way or the other on this. I'm just saying that I think that in the grand scheme of things,
right?
I think they should just be kept separate.
That's cool with me. We're going to move on to some, real quick here. Knowing that you have not seen Star Trek Into Darkness, I'll just throw this out real quick.
Okay. Handle your business.
For the people out there who do not like Abrams doing Star Trek, you'll be happy to know he's not doing Star Trek 3. You've heard of a movie, Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
The one that Mark Wahlberg did? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
One that just out a couple years ago.
Where the apes first take over. Yeah, like the prequel.
It got James Franco in it.
Yeah.
Okay. That one. That director, Rupert Wyatt, has been hired by Paramount to direct the third Star Trek movie. And of course, Paramount's aiming for a 2016 release because it is Star Trek's 50th anniversary that year. And obviously, Abrams is just a little busy with another sci-fi franchise. So anyway.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, and hopefully this doesn't ruin it. Spock doesn't die at the end of Into Darkness, does he? Like he did in Star Trek 2?
No one of the crew from the Enterprise, of the main cast, and
well, I'm just saying,
turn down your volumes real quick if you're listening. Okay, no one dies from the main cast that are listed as credited in the movie that you're seeing playing the iconic roles.
Okay,
no one dies.
Okay, I just didn't want to say the third one being basically a reboot of Search for Spock kind of thing.
If since you went there, have you seen anything of the original series shows?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing the one Space Seed with Ricardo Montalban where they introduced?
Actually, that was on TV about 3 weeks ago here.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Okay, you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Now, some people have said out there that they basically ripped off Wrath of Khan. To me, it is not Wrath of Khan. Yeah, they took some lines from Wrath of Khan that they used, which kind of seemed a little obvious at times. But to me, they took Space Seed and turned it majorly on its ear.
Okay.
To me, that's what they did. They didn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a Wrath of Khan because those characters of this version of this crew is finding out about Khan.
Right.
So, and I won't tell you
what.
what.
The third one will be Trouble with Tribbles.
I don't know. But well, see, they're aiming for this 2016. I have no idea what they're going to do. But the same writers who wrote the first two will be writing the third one. But yeah, no one dies from the cast, and to me, it's Space Seed turned on its ear.
Okay,
that's the way I'm
just saying that I know. We've had this first one that was kind of an origin story. The second one kind of hit on the con thing, and I just didn't want to see. Really, we're gonna play this out again because we've done this. I just figured if you're gonna reboot, let's try and keep it as fresh and original as possible.
And they do beat the crap out of the Enterprise.
Yay!
They don't destroy it.
Oh.
But that's also another funny thing is I read somewhere because Abrams supposedly in one of their original drafts of Into Darkness they were going to destroy the Enterprise. Okay, Paramount came back and said, "No, we don't want you destroying the Enterprise. You can beat it up all you want, but you can't destroy it.
It must stay together."
Because if you look back over history of Star Trek, if you go back about every third movie, there seems to be something happening to an Enterprise, and there's a new one in the next movie.
Well, yeah.
So I think they were wanting to avoid that.
I think, probably what
they were wanting to say one Enterprise stays around for a lot longer than
which makes sense because
fans get tired of that real quick.
Well, I think what happened was they got caught in the loop of we destroyed one, now we have to keep doing it.
Yeah,
in order to make sure that the end result is.
Which I was glad to hear that Paramount said, no, you're not destroying the Enterprise this time. You can beat it up all you want, but you're not destroying it.
Although, I wouldn't mind seeing something related to the Enterprise B because you only see Enterprise B for a few seconds in Generations.
Right. Well, and Into Darkness, they do allude to Sulu and Captain. It's kind of a wink and a nod, I think, because he has to take the con. Sulu has to take the con, and he has to do something. And there's a funny line because McCoy standing there, and the guy playing Sulu, which is I can't think of
John Cho.
Yeah, he does it in a real serious, real like wow, he's nasty, man. And it's funny because Bones just looks down and goes, "Mr. Sulu, remind me not to piss you off," which I thought was great in the movie. But
well, you know how you probably could have avoided making him mad, right? Just get him some White Castle, man. Just saying, just get him some White Castle. It'll be all right.
Anyway, we'll move away from the sci-fi franchises here. Did you like the Jurassic Park franchise?
I've only seen one of them in the theaters. I've seen all the movies, but I only seen one in the theater, and I've seen 3 in the theater a long time ago. But they're okay. They're I don't know why I'm not that big on them because when the first one came out, I was huge into dinosaurs, and that came out about the time I kind of got out of dinosaurs, and I think maybe that's just why I never really got into them.
Okay,
but I've seen them.
Well, how do you sound for the name for the fourth one, Jurassic World?
Well,
now that implies
it seems like a nice crossover between The Lost World and Jurassic Park.
Well, depending on what you read and where you read it at, I've now read 2 different possibilities for the storyline. Which obviously they're being tight-lipped about.
Well, yeah.
The first one is the park from the first movie has been rebuilt. They actually got the park up and going, and it's been running for 5 or 10 years, supposedly. And something happens this time at the park, not just with a few people there, but with an island full of tourists.
That would suck.
Which, to me, sounds like an overglorified Jurassic Park movie from the first one.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens when you get the fourth one is you run out of freshness.
The other scenario I heard just recently, when I don't know how true it is, they released a concept video on YouTube that somehow got Universal back and wanting to do, and Steven Spielberg willing to at least executive produce and
put a stamp on it
and go ahead. Shows a pterodactyl flying around, and then all of a sudden it swoops down on the beach and picks up some sunbather.
No, that'd be awesome.
So considering they have now officially named it Jurassic World, that could give you another concept of maybe
they got off the island.
That they have somehow managed to get themselves off the islands.
Yeah, and
creating havoc wherever.
That was the big deal. I remember with the first one or the second one, is that they weren't supposed to be able to reproduce.
Right.
And yet they managed.
They have. Yes.
Yeah, they managed to, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that somebody didn't steal some of the eggs and take them somewhere. They hatch like on a boat somewhere.
Now, supposedly the guy who wrote this is also directing this movie. Says that this will, his words saying, will reinvigorate the franchise.
Right.
And it will take the franchise in a completely different way than anyone may be expecting.
Okay.
I'm guessing if Universal is willing to put up the bucks to do a fourth movie, they're possibly hoping to see to do at least a fifth one.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. The only thing I knew for sure was that this was going to be in 3D, and this is definitely the kind of movie you want to go see in 3D. I'm convinced of that. I mean, you have these, like especially the T-Rex chasing you around and stuff like that, or
the Jeep scene in the first one.
Yeah, or or the Velociraptors coming.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm game for that. Or if you have like the pteranodons and the pterodactyls flying overhead, that stuff's made for 3D, man.
So, but anyway, that's
especially IMAX.
Jurassic Park World is set for a 2015 release. Not that there's not enough movies in 2015 coming out, but that's for another podcast as well. Yeah. There's just too many.
Podcast 2015. What they didn't get.
Yeah. Just a quick tidbit: the Jurassic Park, the first 3 movies have taken in over $2 billion worldwide.
Okay.
And Jurassic Park, the first movie in '93, is still the highest grossing of the first 3.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean,
of course, and then again, it also got re-released here earlier this year for its 20th anniversary for a couple weeks too.
Yeah.
So that could be helping it a little bit. I got a bunch of little short ones here.
All right.
You're familiar with Roland Emmerich? Directed Independence Day.
Oh, yes.
Godzilla. The Patriot.
Patriot's going to be Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla. That was just kind of a
right
joke.
Now, folks, I'm shaking my head, rolling my eyes, and wishing I could forget that movie.
Now, it was announced a while back he was going to do Independence Day 2 and 3, and that he was going to shoot them back to back. Now it's come out that he's just going to do Independence Day 2, and if it's successful enough, he'll move ahead with a third one. Sounds more realistic. I mean, if you go ahead and shoot a 2 and 3 back to back, almost 20 years after the first one, you're making a big assumption.
You're making the huge assumption that people will
want to go see the second one.
Want to return back to that storyline.
Because then what do you do if the second one bombs and you've already got the third one in the can?
Well, you probably do what they did with like the movie Battleship, which is release it international, watch it make a ton of money international, and then hope that some of the momentum internationally brings it up to speed here in the U.S.
Well, that's what Pacific Rim helped. It helped its numbers. It didn't. It did all right in the U.S., but not as good as they wanted. Yeah. But overseas, Japan, China, and the Asian theater, it was super popular.
Oh yeah, well they haven't had a good Godzilla movie in a while, so they needed something.
They
needed something to pacify them until.
Well, next year we will see what they do because there is a new Godzilla coming out next year. It'll be interesting to see. Supposedly it's 20 years later. Bill Pullman's supposed to be back, but no Will Smith. I don't see how you're going to... I don't see how you can bring him in, considering as president he should be done.
Yeah. I was going to say, obviously he wouldn't be president.
No.
The only person I guess I really see having a real usefulness in the movie would be Jeff Goldblum. His character
right.
I mean, maybe his character is actually more of a more central figure to defeating the aliens than Will Smith's character.
And supposedly the supposed plot rumor is the humans necessarily haven't assumed they wouldn't come back, but they're using the technology from the ships that they crashed at the end of the first one, and use their technology to help defend against in case they do come back. And it's just a matter of their waiting of not necessarily when, but not necessarily if they'll come back, but when they come back.
Yeah.
And supposedly they're going to make... Emmerich has said he wants to make these aliens... He wants to pull you more into with the aliens to make the whole story more believable, the reasons why they're doing this.
Yeah.
He wants to focus a little bit more on the aliens than what he did than just them just trying to destroy Earth.
Right.
So he's trying to make you feel something, I guess, a little bit. I don't know where exactly he's going with it all.
Yeah,
but,
I wouldn't know.
I mean, and first of all, I always wondered or thought after I saw the Independence Day and you saw those crash, supposedly they're 12 miles wide, what the hell do you do with all the scrap metal?
Recyclers had a hell of a field day, man.
That's what I want to know.
Of course, then, they try to melt down. It's like, the stuff don't melt down, man.
So, but yeah, it's, I guess.
The Russians have got theirs.
Have you seen, did you see Avatar when it came out?
No, and for good reason, I had no intention of seeing that movie.
Well, supposedly the rumor for Avatar 2, which is now scheduled for a December 2016 release, there's a rumor going around that Schwarzenegger is going to be playing a human general. Playing, I guess, supposedly the heavy. I have never seen Avatar. I found it interesting. Some people say it's a weird choice, but then again, he has worked with James Cameron in the past, so it's not necessarily an
what was those movies? True Lies, Terminator 1, Terminator 2.
You hit it. Not that those didn't do anything at all. No.
God, I wish that they were going to do. If he was going to work with Cameron again, I would have just much rather have seen True Lies 2.
You know who the actor Lucas Black is? You should.
Yes.
You know what movie he's from?
Off the top of my head, no. I know the name. I can't picture the movie.
Well, think of a franchise that's going into its 7th movie that they're trying to ignore.
Yeah, okay.
That we've had many conversations off microphone about.
Yes.
Now, from what I have here, he so far he's only appeared in the franchise so far in Tokyo Drift. Okay. But they're bringing back his character of Sean Boswell.
Right.
And he's going to be in the next 3 movies. From what I understand, it says you'll understand why it'll make sense to add his character back at this particular point in time.
Well, yeah, because it brings you full circle. The end of 6 brings you full circle into 3, so you actually understand
why 3 is
why
there.
3 is there, and why, if you haven't seen Tokyo Drift, you're not missing much. The only thing you need to know is that Vin Diesel makes a cameo at the end of the movie, in which everybody was like, okay, why is Vin Diesel in this movie? All of a sudden, he wasn't in the second one. He said he'd never do this, and all of a sudden he makes a cameo, and you're like, what the hell's he doing in Tokyo, man, with this monster Impala trying to drift an Impala around a parking lot? Yeah.
Good move, bad move?
It's a good move because of how the way 6 set itself up to go ahead and bring it all full circle. So I think it's a good move.
In the long run?
In the long run. Also, Kurt Russell's supposed to be in this movie, as well as Jason Statham will be in this movie.
Yes, I don't know much about the Fast and Furious franchise. I have bought recently 4 and 5 because I want to see 6, because 6 had my interest watching the trailers.
Right.
So I'm waiting for 6 to come out, and then I'm going to have me a little Fast and Furious marathon. So don't give away too much. It's just, and this is based off of what you've told me.
Fast and Furious marathon. Isn't that a sprint?
Yes.
Questioning that one because you're like, Fast and Furious marathon. Those words do not go together, folks.
Now, what is your quick thoughts here about Paramount has announced a release date for a Terminator reboot for July 1st of 2015. Yet another 2015 release date.
I know you what they need to do. They need to see how the RoboCop reboot does before they even decide to break open another Terminator movie.
Well,
especially
supposedly they're already moving forward with this because they've already set a release date for it.
Who do you get to play? Who do you get to play?
I don't know. The rumor is they don't know if they're going to have Schwarzenegger back in some sort of small role, big role. They've not said anything of what, who or what is supposed to be in it.
As iconic as Arnold is as that character, it's time for him to let that go.
Same way with his Conan movies, which he's going to try and come back. But
the Conan movie works because if you come back at a much later date and time,
it's believable.
It's believable. The problem with the Terminator movie
is
supposed
to be a machine.
He's supposed to be a machine. It's a cyborg. It means
it won't age.
It does well. The body part would age, yeah. But why would Cyberdyne send an old
60-year-old
60-year-old man? Even though he could probably still kick the crap out. Yeah, kick the crap out of all of us with not even breathing too heavy. I just don't see the need for it.
Well, anyway, they're moving ahead. And speaking of RoboCop, my problem with RoboCop is not. I haven't really seen much. I've read a little.
Did you see the trailer?
I haven't seen the trailer yet. But from what I understand, this movie is going to be released as a PG-13 movie. Yeah. And to me, knowing what the first one was, actually, all 3 of the first ones were all rated R.
Why the first 2 were like a serious R? I mean, that's like.
Why would you release a reboot of a franchise and not at least have that first one be an R rated? I can tell you why. There's one reason: money, more masses, more people to the theater.
Because you can get, unlike the way it used to be back in the 80s when a kid could get into an R rated movie without much effort. Right. Now it's a lot harder for a kid to get into it.
To do so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good Lord, when I was that age, when those first movies came out, I could have gone and seen them, and I probably would have gone and seen them.
Well, here's the funny thing. I was living with my grandparents in the small town they were living in at the time when Terminator 2 came out.
Uh-huh.
Now, when Terminator 2 came out, what, 91, 92?
Yeah, 92.
92? Okay. I was in my early 20s at that time.
Uh-huh.
Okay? First time I went to that small town theater, which wasn't a huge theater, but it was still a theater. But it was still a theater nonetheless. I go in there, buy a ticket, day of show, 20 minutes before the movie, and it's already been out a week or two. So I already missed the mass running to, gotta go see this movie.
Right.
There is a girl behind the counter doing the whole transactions with, buying your tickets.
Uh-huh.
She couldn't be more than 18, okay?
Okay.
She sits there and I go, 1 ticket for Terminator 2, please. No hesitation. No thought about this. Doesn't even give me a look or a glance. She just looks at me real quick. I'll need to see some ID, sir. And I looked at her and I was like, are you serious? She goes, yes, sir. I'm sorry. I have to card if I suspect you're under 18. Okay. So I pull my wallet out. I said, well, you're really going to hate yourself. Put my driver's license down. She picks it up. She looks at it, looks at me. Oh, I'm sorry. And then gives it back to me.
You young looking folk.
I thought at the time, it was like, really? Because at that age, I found it a little almost insulting.
She probably got hounded over. But I know something, and I know this is off the beaten path with this a little bit. Because I'm a lot younger than you. I was a kid when that movie came out. Terminator 2. What's the funny thing is about kids getting into seeing R-rated movies?
The thrill of sneaking in.
Well, no. You could get in to see them. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal for at least where I was at. But what's the one thing you would see when you went to Walmart? You'd see all these toys for an R-rated movie. Think about that. All these action figures and toys for R-rated movies.
You may have just struck a theme for a podcast.
You think about, you got your row of Batman, you got your row of Transformers, you got your row of
Spider-Man, Star Wars,
all this
Trek.
Stuff that's PG, and all of a sudden you got like
Terminator.
Terminator, you're like,
and I can't see this movie.
Yeah, you got like a half a dozen T-1000s that different kind of things and different types of Terminator, T-800, and a John Connor and all this and all these action figures, and they had a video game, a Nintendo 8-bit Nintendo video game for both of them. Kids are going to eat this up. No, man, it's perfectly fine. It's just a video game, man. No, but you can't get in to see the movie how it actually plays. Yeah, right. Whatever. Give me 2 tickets for Terminator 2. Get out of my way. And these are like, is his money green? Yeah, let him in. I don't care what anybody says. Is his money green? Yeah, let him in. Make sure he buys the large popcorn too.
Moving on, Eddie Murphy. Yep. Is trying to bring back his probably one of his more iconic characters.
Ain't gonna fall for no banana in my tailpipe, man.
Axel Foley. He's hired the writers who wrote Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol
understand this
for
one at all.
a script, and supposedly Bruckheimer, who produced the first two, which to me I ignore, even though there's technically 3 Beverly Hills Cop movies out there, I ignore the third one.
Yeah, the third one. There's no Taggart. If there's no Taggart, then there's no Beverly Hills Cop. I don't care.
Well, there's no Taggart, and also there's no Bogomil. Forget it.
Well, yeah.
Well, at least for when that one was done.
Yeah. But there's no Taggart. You gotta have Taggart.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, it's gotten the interest of Bruckheimer wanting to possibly come back and produce the fourth one, which I think if you're going to try and do a fourth one, bringing in Bruckheimer is necessarily a bad thing.
No, because Bruckheimer knows how to do a movie like that.
And yeah, he didn't have a great success with Lone Ranger this summer, but then again, look at all the successes to failures Bruckheimer's had. It's lopsided. Mm-hmm. So one failure, I don't think. And
I think, well, the thing is with Lone Ranger is that how much money it lost.
Well, also why does it cost over $200 million to make a Western? That's my first question is, why would you let a Western cost you over $200 million in production costs for a Western? That's my
second question, actually, but...
Well, I'm just saying, why would you do that, considering not taking the risk? I mean, to me, that movie probably could have been done for about $150.
If that.
If that.
But no, my first question is, why do you have Johnny Depp playing Tonto?
I didn't necessarily have a problem with him playing Tonto.
But
it's just the whole, why do you spend so much money on a Western that doesn't need that much CG?
Yeah.
If any. I don't get it.
I don't either. I mean,
I think that's where Disney got hurt on this, is they let the expense get too far out of hand, and then not knowing how well, assuming it would do miraculous numbers.
Now, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen this movie along with probably a lot of you. Based on the numbers, a lot of people.
I heard a lot of. I was excited for it when I saw the previews and the trailers. I thought, awesome. I used to watch the Lone Ranger old TV show on reruns on Saturday mornings growing up.
Yeah,
always loved the Lone Ranger as a character. I thought, great, they're going to do a Lone Ranger movie. It looks excellent. Mm-hmm. But then you started reading more and more about what they did with this movie, and it's like, oh my God. And then you see the first weekend totals from the theater, and it's just like word of mouth spread so quickly that this movie
do not see this.
Has bombed. It's like, oh my God. So if I see it, it'll be when it probably comes to TV.
Yeah. I have no intention of, maybe if it hits Netflix.
Maybe. Yeah. Netflix as well.
I may watch it if it hits Netflix.
But if it's a good Beverly Hills Cop movie, would you go see it?
Yeah. If I know,
because I always liked that character.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know what I always thought was amusing to me about that is that as successful as that character is, it carries with the one stigma that Eddie Murphy hates having. He does not like dealing with a gun. Yet, as a cop,
You have to have a gun.
He has to have a gun.
I guess that's the one thing.
It's just one of those, like, it's kind of interesting.
I think the reason why he's looking to go back to Beverly Hills Cop 4 is because he hasn't had that many successes here recently.
No, not unless he's playing a jackass. I mean, a donkey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to have an ogre as a sidekick.
Yeah.
The last little thing, I know you're a gamer. I know you play Madden.
Yep.
I don't know what kind of other games you play, but are you familiar with Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon?
Actually, it's funny. I have a gold account, and I just downloaded Rainbow Six Vegas.
Ghost Recon, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon. They've whoever owns the movie rights has been given the green light to write a script based off of that. And this is something I did not know about this particular franchise of game. It's a fictional unit of the U.S. Army Special Forces that operates as a president's private army. Now, that written in the right way with the right setup plot could be a very interesting movie to see.
Oh yeah, no, I would fully.
If they do it right,
go see it.
If they do it right,
go see something like that.
And if they put this movie out as PG-13, then something's wrong.
Well,
but you know where I'm going with it, though.
See, now that movie there actually makes more sense as a PG-13 movie because there isn't and you give me this weird look, but no, there's no precedent like with RoboCop, how we had the issue with RoboCop.
Okay, that's true.
And like in the Predator movies, the last few Predator movies that came out, like the two Predator versus Alien movies.
Well, the first one was PG-13,
right?
The second one was R.
Okay,
and if you've seen the second one versus Requiem, you'll know why.
Well, I've seen it on FX. I didn't see it.
You saw it on cable?
Yeah.
Oh, they cut out the worst parts.
Okay. Well,
trust me. There's a maternity scene you do not want to see.
But you understand what I'm saying is that there's no precedent for this to be
an R-rated
movie. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll be one of those. That'll be one of those movies where you get a PG-13 release
and then an
unrated DVD. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, you can watch the theatrical version or the unrated version.
Who watches the theatrical version? Have you ever watched a theatrical version of a movie if you had the unrated or the extended director's cut?
I have eventually. I'll put it this way: if it's been long enough since I saw the movie in the theater, before I got the DVD that had both cuts, I will watch the theatrical version again to refresh me. Okay, and then I'll wait a week or two, come back, and then watch the unrated version, so that way when I watch the unrated version I can remember what was in the theatrical version, so I know what is different.
Yeah, or what they added, and not necessarily unrated, but just director's cut.
Right. Well, basically to me that means they took out these scenes that they thought about leaving in at one time, and that they took out because of they didn't want to. They already had it at 2 hours. They didn't want to make it 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They tightened up the storyline, so they just left it. So they put it in this DVD.
Yeah. I have most of my movie collection anymore. If there's an extended director's cut version of it, that's all I get anymore.
The latest G.I. Joe movie that just came out on Retaliation.
Yeah.
The theatrical version of it's like, an hour and, 50 minutes? They released like an extra 10 minutes on the unrated version.
Well, like, best example, we'll go back to the well with Arnold here. This is Terminator 2. Have you ever seen the extended cut of Terminator 2?
Once.
Yeah, where they show him. They're in the that service station, and he's sewing Sarah up, and then she's sewing him up a little bit, trying to so the wounds will heal. And there's that whole scene that they cut out where they actually take the chip out of his head. They cut his head open, take the chip out, and reset it. Yeah, you don't see that. I love that. I look for that kind of stuff. I really do. So,
well, the first thing that drives my wife nuts, depending on what movie it is if it's a movie that's got a lot of special features. I will sit there and watch the special features first before I'll ever watch the movie again.
Oh, really?
I guess I like seeing how their thought process of putting the movie together, what they did to put the movie together, the special effects they used, that kind of stuff. How they make this scene look so. Because
how they get this shot,
and you're thinking, really, they did that? Wow. You wouldn't think something like that would work, but then you see, it's like, oh, okay, I guess it does work.
Yeah.
So I kind of, for what we do, that part kind of.
Oh yeah, I think I had the original Fast and Furious on DVD, and I think I watched the special features on how they did that train scene probably 5 or 6 dozen times, just because I thought, at the time when it first came out, I had really no clue how they would do something like that. You
Uh-huh.
know? I said, "Oh, they did it with a computer." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but how did you? No, you don't just sit there and magically put a train in there."
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, you magically put a train in there. That's what it's
Yeah.
happening. But
I think we've kind of pushed our time limit here.
okay,
Actually, we probably went a little longer than I anticipated, but that's all right.
hey,
Thanks for coming on.
not a problem. I'm here for your enjoyment.
And you'll be happy to know you are my most returning guest so far. That doesn't
Makes
mean
sense.
much right now.
No, well, I mean, 3 out of 4, yeah.
For Steve, I'm Reggie, and we'll talk at you later.